Hey everyone, before we get on with the show, I wanted to do a modified black woman shout out in support of relief efforts for Hurricane Harvey. We have a lot of listeners in the Houston area and we have even more that want to help. Now, I'm not going to get into reasons why you shouldn't donate to the Red Cross, even though they should be obvious. But we know people want to give, and there are a lot of people out there that need relief. So, and one of the biggest group of people that need relief are going to be black women and their families. I think we've all seen the disgusting CNN video of the black woman being interviewed in a shelter while she and her children were still dripping wet, and that reporter just like pisses all off. We know people need help, and we want to make sure that effort gets out there to them. Thankfully, Ronnie Dean Byrne is coordinating an effort to donate directly to black women affected by Harvey. I'm going to give you guys two links that you should bookmark and share right now. The first is bit.ly/support black women HOU. That's bit.ly/capital SUPPORT capital BLACK capital WOMEN capital H capital O capital U. This will send you to a Google document that has the PayPal, Cash Me, Venmos for black women and their families that you can support directly. You just pick a name on the list, give generously. The money goes straight to the families there. These families have been vetted. These are people that need help that are in Houston. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure this is just Houston, so I don't think they. I know that Louisiana is also getting hit too. I think this is just for Houston. You can also share the list on social media using the hashtag support black women HOU. The second link is for black women who are affected by Harvey and would like to be added to that list, the donate list. And that one is bit.ly/support with a capital S, capital B, capital W, capital H, capital O, capital U. Support BWHOU. You can complete the Google form there, and once your application is submitted, someone will get back to you, and they will add you to the list. If you are a black woman who is being affected by Harvey, reach out, fill out this form. Somebody will get back to you. If you know black women and their families that are affected, send them this so they can get their release from there. This is money that's going directly to them. This is radical support that gets the money directly to where it needs to go. No more going into organizations where only a portion of that money gets to where it needs to go. This money is going directly into these families' accounts. We know it's being hit. If you listen to the Insanity Check, then you know at the end we had LaToya talk about the FEMA response and how heartbreaking of what's going on there is happening. This is money that's needed and is going directly to where it needs to go. So please share this information. Donate what you can. Check the show notes for all the shows that we put this in front of. We'll make sure we include the links there for both the list for you to donate to as well as the application. Like I said, support what you can. You guys have supported us. Please, pay that forward and support others. Thank you guys now, and now on with the show.
Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, D Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. If you're going to talk about the show on Twitter or any social media, please use the hashtag UDPod so I can find you. Thank you for the shout out suggestion or angry missive, I guess you could possibly leave as well. Now that you found the show, don't lose the show. Subscribe in the iTunes store. You're probably subscribed, of course, to the MCR main feed. Why wouldn't you be? But make sure you subscribe to this feed as well. This way, when we do things like Podcast Week, when I drop 2 or 3 in a week, when I somehow get to 63 episodes in a year weekly show, you make sure you don't miss any of them. You get them delivered right on time, directly to the device of your choosing. You found the show. You're not going to lose the show. Say thank you to the show. Leave that 5-star review. Leave any words you want to on that 5-star review. We'll read it on the air. It's an obligation I made and had to follow through, even when the Falcons do what they did to me in February. Now, the MTR Network, we're not just one site. We cover everything. We cover politics. We cover gaming. We cover relationships. We cover science. We cover movies. We cover it all. And the best way you can get more MTR Network in your life is to make sure you pay that $8 a month to go premium. Hundreds of more hours of audio goodness, including comic book clubs and a bevy of other shows. I'm just thinking about the only one that I'm really on. But I know I'm going to do a Hell No Cupid before I get married, which Chris and I are very excited for and a little nervous. But I also know we're going to be stacking up a whole bunch of character corners that everyone loves as we get into the fall. Now, you subscribed, you're on premium, this is all great. Tell everyone else that you love about things that you love via the MTR store. Wear an MTR Network t-shirt. The Blame D-Palm and Blame Chris shirts will be back in stock for the fall. You won't need the Blame D-Palm ones. I don't do anything. It's all Chris. Last but not least, if you're going to be shopping on Amazon, and we all are, make sure you take a little bit of money out of Bezos' pocket and put it in the networks by using our Amazon affiliate link on mtrnetwork.net. I believe that's all the shilling I have to do today. And I got to say, this is weird because we're recording on a Monday again for the first time since, I do believe, the very first episode of this podcast. If you remember, a year ago, we started our journey on UD Pod, taking a sports show to the MTR network. And we recorded on Labor Day to show that how much we love the people who want to listen. It went up on Tuesday. And to start season 2, and I'm tentatively calling it, I have to go back to the beginning. Our first guest, some would say our most heralded guest, the guest who people want to replace me the most, my father, David Palmer. What up, Dad?
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Glad to be back. Have enjoyed all 63 episodes as well.
Yeah, you say that, but you didn't just come ready to record today. You came with notes and ideas, and I had to move some things around. I'm excited because this may be the first step in you taking over this show.
Now remember, we work on the premise of those 7 Ps.
Of course we do. And I've shared them with many people many a time. Well, let's get started by looking at the very first weekend of college football. I know you and I are both glad it's back. Before we get too far into that, I do want to ask you, because I hadn't gotten your opinion kind of in person, but I definitely hadn't gotten it on record. Mayweather-McGregor, the spectacle that was. We both kind of knew it would just be a show, but I think it may have been a pretty entertaining show, no?
I think it was very entertaining. I mean, you got 10 rounds. You had the anticipation of the delay because of the network was overcrowded. I mean, it just heightened, and I think it was a great shot. Everybody earned their money. I'm just glad they didn't get none of mine.
That's 100% fair. I think the best story out of the whole thing is people want to make excuses for McGregor and try to say Mayweather would never step in a foot in the octagon. I go, the octagon can't afford him. Why would he ever do that? And the best thing I've heard about this, and the veracity is in or out there, but I want to believe the story is true, that Mayweather bet on the under of 9.5 rounds. He tried to. He tried to place a $450,000 cash bet on himself to finish McGregor in under 9.5 rounds. If you look at the stoppage, it's right at that midway through the 10th. Like this, that's from all everyone says, oh, Mayweather was old, he was slow. No. Everything that happened happened because Mayweather allowed it. He wanted to bet on himself to end him at the exact time he ended him.
Yeah, no question about it in my mind. It was a great show, and I just leave it at that. It was a show, and I followed boxing, and I really got into MMA, I guess, not too recent over the last 2 or 3 years, but I followed boxing most of my life because that's all that was out there, and this was a show. This was a show.
Do you think this is going to take on the Conor McGregor barnstorming tour? Come see Conor box a boxer?
No. I think it was for the kind of money that they'll want to do it. It's a one-time shot. It was a one-time shot. Most other MMA folk and boxers aren't as business savvy as Mayweather.
But if Mayweather can get the licensing rights to McGregor,
that would be a different.
And that would put that Mayweather machine behind McGregor's barnstorming, stoking racial tension and fighting boxers,
or either meld it in with WWE. I mean, there's a lot. There are a lot of business opportunities out there now.
That's my John Jones Brock Lesnar WrestleMania 34 main event I've got lined up.
Oh, you should.
Well, all right. Before we get into college football, the big kickoff weekend, I didn't want to touch the NFL because I know you watched more Falcons preseason because I know you watched some, so you watched more than I did. Do our Falcons have a chance to shake this post-Super Bowl hangover we all hear about and we all actually kind of see happen in practice? Is this a team that can kind of withstand that stress and hopefully make a run in a very much improved NFC South?
That the ability to withstand the stress is not going to be comparable to the improvements that have been made in Carolina and in Florida. That's going to be the issue. I think that they can shake that off. I mean, they looked competent during preseason, but the improvement on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Panthers, I think, is going to be a telling. And of course, New Orleans is always going to be that cross the street brawl. So they can shake it off, but they're going to still have a rough road to hoe. I don't see them winning 10 games this year.
Good. See, look at it. Everyone wonders where my stoic realism comes when I'm cheering for a team. That's the source. That's that actual lens of actual, like, I would love to tell you that the Falcons are going to come through and once again and take the inaugural season in that awfully named stadium with that awful eagle or Falcon out front and go to a Super Bowl. But I appreciate the honesty. I think that's what we all need in these times, is to realize that wishing does not make it true.
Truly.
And yeah, that's a really
Sure.
that was fair, and I appreciate that, because now I feel vindicated in both my fear of Tampa Bay and my realization that the Falcons probably won't get it done this year. But something the NFL's gotten done, and I know there's been a lot of quote end quote controversy as to whether it's I don't know. What crosses the line to formal blackballing? Like, does there have to be a signed document? Do we have to find email records saying that we're all agreeing not to sign this guy? Or does, like, things like Brock Osweiler finding his way back to Denver and Joe Webb, who has not thrown a football in an NFL game since 2011, getting signed over the weekend, is that collusion enough? Or do we need an actual smoking gun?
This is my business. I own this team. I'll do with it what I want. Now, that's what it is. And you can't sue me. You can't take me to court about it, and you will never find a smoking gun, because it's like that unspoken signal between the offensive guard and the tackle when they got a linebacker in their sights and they're going to wipe out the whole side of the line. They don't have to say it. They just look at it and nod.
This is a line call for blackballing?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And you won't find a smoking gun. You won't find emails. I mean, this ain't like the telephone company back in the 80s, so no, that's not going to happen.
But at a certain point, Joe Webb's last action in the NFL was as a wide receiver.
Hey, it's my company. I can hire people in the positions that I deem necessary for the benefit of my business.
It
is what it is.
So with these two signings, are the ardent, how do I put this gently, water carriers of the brand going to be forced to come to some truths, or are we going to have the continual tap dancing of why isn't he signed roulette?
Well, no, I don't think the water carriers of the Shield, they won't care. I mean, it's like Deflategate. or Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
Once your guy comes under the spotlight, we all stand back and say, look here, just don't cost me no money. If he's got to sit 6 games, we don't care. If the Deflategate gets out of hand, we don't care. The numbers keep going up. We're in good shape. We're gonna give Roger Goodell a raise. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses, Daniel. I mean, this is serious money.
Yeah, and we've talked about how there's really it's kind of at this point bulletproof money once that DirecTV news came out during the lockout. But and I know you heard some talk from Dominique Foxworth this week that kind of beggars my next question, because we're at a place where it looks like there is no recourse for anyone here, because, like you said, there's going to be no smoking gun. There's going to be no evidence of collusion. But Joe Webb is an NFL quarterback and Colin Kaepernick isn't. And there's one reason. And we even had Aaron Rodgers come out this week in a Bleacher Report, in a sit-down with Neil Hines of ESPN and say, this is ridiculous. The reason he's not on the team is because he kneeled, and that's unacceptable. You've got the biggest faces, black and white now, who are willing to take a stand because and I hate making Joe Webb the flashpoint, but it feels like the Joe Webb corollary has been breached. And at this point, you're either a water carrier for the Shield, or you recognize that something seriously wrong is happening.
But here again, it's the nature of the beast, Daniel. It's the NFL. It's a protected entity that has no governance whatsoever other than the courts. And as you mentioned, Dominique Foxworth, who was with the Players Association over the last couple of negotiations, he's suggesting that they just void the union and go back to being an association. Therefore, every detail that you don't feel is right, you can take to court under fair labor, under discrimination, under whatever else you can, because they got tricked into going back to the union, because the union is limited because it has to go by the agreements they've made with the league. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that's something you mentioned that, and it's really interesting to me, because in a situation where the average union member's livelihood, his active union dues paying membership is less than 3 years, it asks, what are you collectively bargaining with if you can't plan for long term?
And not only that, 30% of your membership is newly employed and just glad to be getting a check. So therefore, you down 33%. You down 33% before you talk about walking away from the table.
And you have to ask what kind of power a collective bargaining power a union can have when there is no long-term goal, because there is no long-term perspectives for any current member of the union. And I've always been very hard on the union when I work with them and on this podcast, but they are in a weird conundrum that, of course, are the weakest union. They had the least amount of control and power and collective bargaining ability, collective bargaining voice than any of the major sports leagues. The NBA players, hey, the end of the bench guys are loving it. The front of the table guys can never get paid adequately, but they've risen the floor for all the guys who are going to be coming after to get those 1 or 2 year deals. MLB is possibly the strongest union of all time because I'm not entirely sure that baseball runs baseball anymore. Meanwhile, the NFL's got these by design short-term laborers who can't be secure enough in the short term because of salary structure and team size to build for a long term.
They're called temporary assets, and the lifespan for the average is 3 years. So if you're there for 3 years, you need to do everything you can to maximize your earnings, and that does not include work stoppages.
No. And as we've seen with this league, if you really stop work, they will go get replacement players.
And the sponsors will continue to pay.
Because it's never about and we'll talk about this more when we get to college, but it's never about the name on the back of the jersey or even the face under the helmet. You're cheering in the most strictest terms, particularly in football, for laundry.
True. So true.
And it's so wild that people are saying that people coming onto a team would be divisive and that it would tear apart a team. Cleveland Browns, we covered it last week, had 11 players kneel during the anthem before preseason game. In response to, and I've talked about this with my dad already, but I do want everyone listening to hear and try to track the logic here because it will evaporate at some point. In response to the players' anthem protests, which they respectfully took a knee, and they said it was in prayer for our nation, the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association President Steve Loomis says that the Cleveland Police Union will refuse to participate in the raising of the flag during the home opener to protest the anthem protest. So their protest of the anthem protest is to not come.
Amazing.
Is it just one of those situations where they did something, we got to do something, and they don't think it through? Or is this like, have we become, and I turn to you because you've seen more of America than I have we become so debased as a country that this sound and fury, literally signifying absolutely nothing, is going to be seen as a statement to someone?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
No. When I say yes, it's going to be a statement to all the quote unquote blue folk that it's okay that you do what you do because we're going to stand behind you whether you're right or wrong. And even if you're wrong to the nth degree, as in many of the cases in Cleveland, while they're under investigation by the feds for the last 2 or 3 years, they're going to demonstrate that they have quote unquote the control. And it's just a reflection of how they perceive their role in our society, and it's not protect and serve.
No, it never has been, and I think it's such a ridiculous stretch to even. I don't know. It's hard for me to put into words how ridiculous this is, and then the fact that it's going to, like you said, charge up some people and inspire some people and say that's how it's done to some people blows my mind, because this is the most simple-minded thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Also simple-minded and easy to do is to join our NFL Pick'em group. We have an NFL weekly Pick'em against the spread that we're running under the UD Pod heading. You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter, UD Pod on Twitter. Also, we'll be tweeting it out, dpalm66 on Twitter and Facebook, dpalm66. There's a link there. There's a link in our MTR network group. If you want to find the link, just hit me up on any of the devices, any of the ways that you know you can, and I will send it directly to you. Make sure you join before this coming Thursday. Prizes have not been announced because I'm still trying to figure them out. But trust me, there'll be something interesting and something fun and tailored to whoever tends to win it. So I know you're involved, Dad. Do you think you have any chance at all?
Oh, I think I'm going to set the bar. I won't make my.
There's a low bar too. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. I've never stepped over the low. The low bars just don't. No. I'm going to set the bar for the league, and I'm going to apologize to all the participants up front. Don't take it personal. This is the Palmer method of teaching.
He's not wrong. That's how I learned dominoes. If you play me in dominoes, you're going to lose because I spent roughly 16 years of my life getting beaten in dominoes until naturally. That's how I teach things as well. Next time Susan's on, we can talk about every time we play any video game ever. It's a steep learning curve, but she gets there. Let's talk about college football. It's back in town, and for all the problems I have with it and continue to have with it, man, Saturday felt good. It felt right to have it back on, and the heat finally broke in Atlanta, and it felt like football.
Man, it was such a great Saturday. I even got up extra early Saturday morning, like 9 o'clock, extra early to get all of my barbecue cooking out of the way so I could just sit back and vegetate on college football, and it was well worth it. Although I did get a cheat somewhat and started Friday night, but it was a great Saturday and good to see college football back.
What was Friday night?
Friday night there was a game Friday night. It wasn't a big name game. I think it might have been Texas Southern and Georgia State on Friday night.
Okay.
Clark.
Clark was Friday. That's what I was trying to feed
Clark played Mississippi College on Friday night. Went into overtime, 44-yard field goal in overtime. Clark takes the victory, and I enjoyed it even watching those streaming videos. So I'm all in for college football.
There you go. It's officially back. Let's start in the SEC because that's where I live. That's where I came into podcasting. We'll start with the team that brought me here. University of Georgia took on Appalachian State. Everyone remembers 10 years ago. App State knocked off Michigan and kind of the announcement of these FBS teams not getting pushed around by then FCS teams. It's been a level of parity that we haven't really experienced in the history of college football in the 10 years since. We'll cover some of those games later today. But App State came down to Georgia from Boone, North Carolina, and 10 plays in, and Jacob Eason hurt his leg.
Man. On a penalty play as well. He was pushed out of bounds. It was a freakish kind of play.
It was, and the more you watch it, and they say they don't know how long he's out, and it's hyperextension. And let me get this out of the way now. Jake Fromm looked very good for a freshman. 10-15 for a touch, 143. He leaned on Chubb, and company in the backfield. They were able to get it done.
He had a nice touch too. Now he leaned on him because they were there.
Right.
But now those first two passes he made were spot on. I mean, it may have been a little off, but for good receivers like they've got with Georgia, they were close enough for them to make those plays. And he looked more settled in the pocket. As I mentioned to Susan's dad yesterday, who's a big Fromm proponent because they're both from Warner Robins.
Yep.
Man, they may have whispered in somebody's ear and said, "Look, man, if it looks like you're not gonna hold on, you might want to pull up lame for a moment so we can get this kid in here." But Fromm looked really good for a true freshman.
Yeah, for a true freshman especially. I think Sonny Michel looks great early. You're right, that pass from the 34-yarder to Wims, it was a great pass. A little underthrown for my taste. But you're right, the receiving talent was able to shine out. Hopefully we can see that carry on. What I'm nervous about is because you and I both know Georgia fans, and they like to snap at everything that's pretty and new. And this Fromm thing, it looks like it's going to continue in Notre Dame week. And I'm going to spoil this game for people. Georgia's going to beat Notre Dame.
Yes.
Notre Dame won 4 games last year. And the world's going to treat it like it's a big win. It's not.
No, sir.
True freshman on the road, it doesn't matter. This is not Notre Dame of 1983, which is the last time they were truly relevant. This is a Notre Dame team that's bad, that's got a coach on his last legs who continues to lash out at his players for his own failures and cannot move the football. So, yes, they're going to win next week, and everyone's going to tell you how good Fromm is. Fromm's numbers yesterday, and he didn't play 10 plays, 10 of 14. 10 of 15, excuse me.
10 of 15, yeah.
You're not going to win in a 2017 SEC conference throwing the ball 15 times.
No, sir.
Not against these defenses. I'm the biggest Nick Chubb proponent on the planet. Sony Michel, I can't believe he stayed. I'm still like, who lied to you and told you not to go to the NFL? Selfishly, as a fan, I'm glad he's back. Selfishly, as a human, I'm like, please just don't get hurt. Every time he touches the football. That being said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because those voices in Athens can be loud. They may have sent a Hall of Fame coach to South Beach. And I'm going to tell you right now, this story ends with Miami winning the national title in 2019 with transfer student Jacob Eason.
You get no argument here. Get no argument here.
Look, Rick recruited him first. This ends with a trophy in South Beach. Jacob Eason hoisting it for Coach Mark Richt.
Well, that's and here again, I think we talk about college sports and kids not getting paid. There are several examples out there where college kids who got their hands around the whole issue of who they are and what their role is. Wilson came from North Carolina State. When he realized he was no longer the man, went to Wisconsin.
Yep.
We've got a quarterback at Clark, McCrary. He did several years at Vanderbilt. Realized he wasn't going to make it. Came to Clark to get his master's. So I'm saying for those young people who can wrap their heads around this is my actual career and this is what I can control, there are some options. Get your grades, get the heck, use as little of the eligibility as you can, and the first chance you get, find a situation that's built for you. So I'm totally with you. Eason ending up in Miami would not be a shock to me, and that, in fact, it would probably be a good thing.
Let's go through some of the other games before we get to some of the big things we want to break down. LSU beat BYU 27-0. Coach O off to a great start there. Vandy hung 28-6 on Middle Tennessee State. Ole Miss, no escorts on the sideline, presumably 47-27 over South Alabama. Mississippi State shut out Charleston Southern 49-0. Kentucky featuring a kicker who's a transfer from Columbia University. So this kind of matters to me. So they squeaked by Southern Miss 24-17. South Carolina.
You said kicker from Kentucky.
Yeah, the Columbia kicker. The kicker for Kentucky is a transfer from Columbia.
The punter from Georgia is a transfer from Columbia.
Well, there you go. Look at this. Taking over the SEC, one special teams position at a time. South Carolina beat NC State 35-28. They could not fill the stadium for these two alleged cross-state rivals. And the loudest cheer of the day was when they announced UNC's loss on the mega screen. I'm not sure what they call screens anymore because Jerry's thrown off the whole scale. Mizzou hung 72 on Missouri State, and I got my eye on that because Drew Lock throwing 7 touchdowns. I don't care who it's against. That's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
Auburn beat Georgia Southern as they're supposed to. Let's talk about some of the big games, some of the marquee games. I don't know. What was that first one? Oh, Michigan took on Florida. And how did that turn out for the Gators? 11 rushing yards. This is why I told everyone, I said, I don't care what happens with Tom Herman. He cannot go to Gainesville. Because you give him an offense that may be something good. They ain't got no offense.
Yeah.
What more can you say? Like, this is really bad.
Oh, it is. It is.
And I know for years, this has kind of been the Florida remit. It's been our defense and our special teams. But they got out-defended and out-special teamed on Saturday. This is just, I think this may have been that point. And Spencer Hall wrote about it because he's a Florida fan and probably the best college football writer on the planet. But when he wrote down his Florida breakdown from this week, this is who Florida's been for a while. It's been a slow decline from a first-rate program through second-rate program to a third-rate program that gets first-rate recruits but can't do anything with them. And I couldn't argue with him because you look at some of the names on that sideline. Malik Zaire, we've seen him play well in college football games. He's coming off the bench and he looks bad, and they're going to go with the other kid next week.
Yeah, it's different for sure.
And I, for one, will shed 0 tears for the Gators and their shortcomings as a football franchise. You know, maybe they get together, maybe they don't. I couldn't honestly care less. The biggest game of Saturday, Bama, Florida State. And everyone told me how great this game is going to be. Everyone told me this is going to be a definitive signal for how the season is going to go. It's going to be a slugfest between two teams that will look across the sidelines and see a reflection of itself. All I saw was Bama.
We don't start over. We just reload. That running back. I need to check his ID. Check his birth certificate. He looks like he's older than me. Come on. You know, he's been sitting there 3 or 4 years.
It's ridiculous. These kids, they just crank out. And people, after the first half, I had friends, hey, look, hang with Bama. I go, no, they're not. They're losing, which means the Saban octopus is coming out, and he's just going to choke you to death. We're going to block punts, we're going to block field goals, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, how'd they score 24 points? And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And I'll tell you what, for as much as I enjoyed college football, and this happened a couple times on Saturday, I did get shaken back to the reality of these are unpaid athletes that an entire ecosystem. So Susan and I were up before on Sunday just hanging out, and we had the television on in the background, and she looked up and said, wait, are those 5 people talking about college football? I go, yes. She goes, are all 5 of those people probably pretty handsomely paid? Yes, ma'am, it's ESPN. They are known to pay their talent, yes. And then she said, but at the end of the pyramid, it's all based on a labor force that makes 0. I said, exactly. And it's a crazy thing because DeAndre Francois hurt his knee, and he's out for the season. And there's not much more that the school can offer him besides here's some more FSU stuff, and you're going to be our mascot on the sideline.
And he better hope that he doesn't have a Fromm as a backup. if he's got a meaningful backup, by the time he gets back, he might be looking to transfer.
You don't want to get Wally pipped.
That's what I'm saying, and it's out there. I mean, that's the other side of the coin. Even to go along with not being properly compensated.
Right, and now let's hope that this isn't a chronic knee injury that's going to require a lifetime of care, because his guaranteed care through the school ends.
Right.
It ends. That's why there were so many fundraisers for Eric LeGrand when he was paralyzed in the field, because the school knew it ends.
Yeah. Or the young man from Southern that got paralyzed up at University of Georgia a couple of years ago. Georgia's still taking care of him.
Because it ends. Because these are 1-year scholarships and nothing is guaranteed. And if you think that's a fair or just way to treat a situation where literally we're discussing the activities of the most, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, irresponsible and least count onable group of people on the planet, and that's 18 to 20-year-old American males. Yeah. That's why you don't gamble on college football, and that's why you don't ever take the position of they're paid in education. The last big game in the SEC this weekend, A&M, UCLA, a shootout on Sunday. Josh Rosen, proving why he's probably the best quarterback in the nation. And I wake up today to see a Texas A&M regent saying that Kevin Sumlin should be fired. Now, am I in a bit swayed because maybe they have erased the Falcons as the calendar year's most embarrassing upset? I don't know. Maybe. I'm willing to have that argument. 18
to 22-year-olds, Daniel.
Can I have my win? What was that? Hey, whoa, I don't ask for much. I'm taking this. Now, back to this member of the board of regents. And this is something that was talked about before the season, that someone was on the hot seat and blah, blah, and people wanted more out of someone. And this guy writes this unhinged thing on Facebook about, and he uses, let's just say, all the code words. And I'm just going to read a couple from direct. He said that he described someone as arrogant. Said he recruits well, but is not the smartest to coach the big games. He was ungrateful for his contract and manipulated his way into a new one. If you speak code, you know what he's trying to say. Yep. And it's another reminder that, yes, the SEC and college football as a whole has grown and changed, but at the core, the guys behind it really haven't. It just became unpolite to say some of the things that they actually think.
Say publicly, you mean?
You can't say it publicly anymore. But I'll tell you what, you can say, oh, A&M should have won it, blah, 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 on the road. Look, on the road against a team like this, a UCLA with a quarterback who 35 of 59, 491, 4 touchdowns. There's not a whole lot of defense you can call that stops that.
No.
At a certain point, an OC and a quarterback have hit their stride, and it just happened to come in those last 15 minutes for UCLA.
And oh, by the way, this was the first game of the year.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, what's the biggest joker that someone's got? $12 million.
Write the check.
You write the check, sir. The thing is, because he wrote it, he said, "I'm not going to take it down. I'm not going to regret it." He's a Houston attorney named Anthony Busby.
Guess what? Busby. Their road's named like Busby, like the Huey Long Bridge.
Mm-hmm. It's he wants to say it out there. He wants out there. The number's 12. And I know he could never do this. And I know he would never do this because he's a better man than me. But if Kevlin Sutherland said the number's 12 and that was his only quote, I'm sorry. I would ride for that. And something we talked about after what happened, we're going to go wide picture now, talk about the rest of the top 25, because Texas took that L. And I was told by AppleCare that Tom Herman was able to fix everything. Was I lied to?
Well, one thing about it, if Texas A&M writes that check, University of Texas will write a different check and pick him up the same day. He wouldn't be unemployed 72 hours.
Well, let's talk about Texas for a second because there was a lot of fanfare behind Tom Herman, excuse me. Thanks again for not going to Florida. Really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. Nightmares. But Maryland came down to Austin and beat Texas. And they didn't just beat Texas on a fluke last play. They didn't beat Texas because of overtime. No, they came out for 4 quarters and beat the doors off the Texas. And I watched every second, still don't get it. I still don't get it. How does Maryland score 30 points in the first half? How? Where did Texas score 20 in the third quarter? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's when Texas reasserted themselves. No. That's when Maryland put their foot on Texas' throat and said, we're done here. Ends up the win 51-41. Tom Herman said he'd score points. He did, 41 points, although it just wasn't enough. Is this what Texas is? This kind of the inverse of Florida where you're defined by a high-powered one side of the team but just can't get it done for 60 minutes?
Now let's keep in mind now, Maryland plays in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is not the doormat it used to be. I mean, it's quietly, there are some teams up there that can play the game of football. Ask some of our neighbors in the SEC.
That's true, but at the same time, like it's still Maryland and Texas.
Yeah.
Like we can shine this up all we want, and it's still Maryland and Texas. That's a statement loss for Tom Herman, and this is a guy who I thought couldn't take more than 4 in his first year.
Well, he's gotten only 3 left, and let's put it that way. He's down 25% if that's the case, Daniel.
Well, Texas came into the weekend ranked 23rd. They took the loss. In a completely unrelated story, Charlie Strong's South Florida team entered the weekend 19th and took 42-22 over San Jose State on the road. So, hey, it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you.
It is what it is. Yeah. Just report the fact. Just a fact, man.
I'm just reading the results. Another result I had to read a couple times to believe. Ohio State getting taken to the limb by Indiana. And you can shine up that Maryland all you want. Nobody said Indiana was going to hang.
Nobody.
And for a half, we were all kind of Hoosiers. They got that. They're doing that very high-powered, fast-paced offense, but just too much talent for Urban Meyer. Ended up winning 49-21. Do you think this is a continued SECization of the Big Ten? Because you said it's improved, but its marked improvement can be pointed directly to Urban Meyer bringing in a certain level of talent, opening up certain recruiting bases, and changing philosophy in front as the front runner of that conference.
Well, it's definitely improved. Michigan improved. Look at Wisconsin has improved. I'm just saying, Penn State. I'm not Penn State. Penn State's improving.
Yep.
I just think Northwestern didn't look bad over the weekend. Come on, there are some teams there. You won't have very many weekends off in the Big Ten, just like you have none in the SEC.
You're 100% right, and this Indiana thing, I wasn't ready for it mentally, but I enjoyed every second that I got it. And I think that there's a really great piece. I've shared it on my Facebook. I'll share it in the show notes here. But Spencer Hall every year, and you've heard me talk about Spencer Hall, is on Twitter, EDSBS, everydayshouldbesaturday.com. He's the best college football writer on the planet, like by far, bar none. And every year he does a kickoff piece of the season. And this year's kickoff piece is about football. It's about defense. It's about offense. It's about the South. It's about America. And it's about floods. And I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And you should read it.
He did it well, too. He did it very well.
It's some really, really, really great prose and makes you kind of think about football a different way. I invite everyone to check that out. Let's talk about UNLV. Because
Really?
UNLV entered a football game with Howard University coming to town as, I believe, 44.5-point favorites.
Yes.
This would be a story if Howard covered. This would be a story if Howard kept it close.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be a great story.
But what's the story, Dad?
The story is the rabbit had a shotgun. Rabbit had a shotgun.
Explain that one to the listeners. I am well versed in my Palmerisms. If you could please.
But no, I'm a hunter, and normally when you hunt rabbits, you have dogs, and the dogs run the rabbits run in a circle, and you shoot the rabbit. Problem that happened to UNLV, this rabbit had a shotgun. Cam Newton's younger little brother, who's the quarterback at Howard University, put it on UNLV. Now that's like UNLV. Remember now, UNLV and these big teams, they pay these smaller teams to come in and take that whooping the first week.
Yep.
The rabbit had a shotgun. Howard beat UNLV. UNLV then had to write them a check and thank them for coming.
$600,000.
Ooh, good gracious, I'll take that.
That was the check. Howard received a check for $600,000. There is no report. It was an oversized novelty check, the type they use at golf tournaments. There's no clarification on that, but I really hope for Howard's sake it was. This is a great, amazing, like the more I read into the story, the more amazing the story gets. The coach. Well, we already talked about Cam Newton's little brother coming in there and doing what he had to do. He's a freshman quarterback, undersized, ran, did what he had to do, get the win. Mike London, the head coach at Howard, he left an assistant gig on a head coaching track at University of Maryland and said the slogan for his first season would be Mission Possible. And this is it. This is one of those super feel good stories because that's why it's feel good, because it's not supposed to happen. The way football is designed, Howard, with limited resources, with limited money, with limited exposure, with limited talent recruiting pools, is not supposed to step onto a field and compete with, let alone defeat, a UNLV.
Right.
And divorce yourself what you're saying. UNLV is not really a football school. Divorce yourself from that. Think about it this way. UNLV, for purposes of this conversation, is Coca-Cola.
Right. Right.
Cheerwine just took over Coca-Cola's market share. That's what this game was. Yeah. For those of you not from North Carolina, Cheerwine is a very regional, delicious beverage, but it's super regional. And that was a deep cut. Shout out to everyone in Carolinas. This is what happened. Cheerwine just took out Coca-Cola. And not just took him out they got him in a deal. They took him out publicly so everyone could see it. And then Coke wrote Cheerwine a check. I think that's probably the most Southern analogy I've ever used on this show.
I love it.
Yeah, we're back, guys. This is it. Full swing. Season 2, off and running. I had a Rick Sanchez-esque rant, but I'm not going to do it, not this week. Dad, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any parting words you want to leave? Any wisdom? Any more Palmerisms you would like to drop? The floor is yours.
No, I really enjoyed. I enjoy your openness and candor on the pod. Don't stop being who you are, and whatever you do, keep telling the truth. And by the way, another FBS team lost on this weekend too, and that was Georgia Southern lost to Tennessee State and wrote them a check. Have a good one. Congratulations on your second year, son. Appreciate you and love you much.
Love you too. Thanks for coming on. Albeit because it's Georgia State, it was a much smaller check than the UNLV check, but it was still a check.
A check.
I guarantee a check was written. And guess what? That check was mobile deposited. That was deposited in the. Let's just take this picture here, and we're good. We're good. Let's get this thing in here, and let's get on the bus and get out of here tonight. No one enjoyed a longer stay after picking up that win. This has been the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I'm your host, D-Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. If you're going to talk about the show on social media, please use the hashtag UDPod so I can find you and thank you. 5-star reviews are very helpful for us. It's a great way to have your voice heard. Make sure you subscribe in the iTunes Store. Subscribe everywhere the podcasts are available for absolutely free. We'll be back next week. Make sure, if you don't have the link, reach out to me on Twitter. Reach out to me on Facebook. Reach out to Chris. He'll yell at Chris. He'll yell at me. I'll get the link out. If you want to do the NFL Pick'em, please, it just takes a quick tweet or email me at udpodcast@gmail.com. or dpalm@mtrnetwork.com. Either email. I check them all. I'll make sure you get added. Join before Thursday. I'll be announcing what the prizes are going to be after week 1. So get involved. They're good prizes. I'm gonna be tiers. Like there's gonna be options to the prizes because not everyone's gonna want the ideal prize, but I'll be able to make it work. So there's something to be won. There's no investment from you. I'm only putting things that I care about on the line, which I got to look at my structure on this bad boy next year. But it's a great way to get involved, interact with the people who love this show as well. That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys next week.